I promised you juicy bits about this podcast with Jamie Kern-Lima yesterday, and I am here to deliver the tea. But be sure to put yours down so you don't choke on the Meg's ego. This low-key flew off the rails. It was a really calm moment where the cringe was magnificently humongous, and I literally could not believe my ears. The Meg basically said that she was destined for all of this. It was all divinely ordered. Like implying that she was chosen by God or the powers that be or whatever to marry Harold and prance around Montecito hawking tacky products and creating horrible content, ugly flower arrangements, and demonstrate how not to cook. It was all meant to be, you guys. It was her soul contract. You know why? Because she can handle it. Floor crying, anyone? Lying on Oprah? Lying in Netflix? It was all too much. They had to quit. Where is the handling of the situation there? That they had to quit, stomp their feet, cause a big hullabaloo, and lie about it all. I'm sorry, I'm not seeing the handling it well anywhere. After just a few months of actually working the job, they gave up, threw in the towel, and have since worked really hard to make sure they remain on the most disliked public figures, least popular famous lists. Well, if that was divinely ordered, then I guess the Meg really has done some horrible things to get this sort of a punishment. A really twisted paradox of some kind. But also, perhaps more importantly, regardless of how you feel about all of that, the most important question here is, who in their right mind would ever say such a thing? Who? I cannot abide the overinflated ego on display in this garish, off-putting, insane, seriously unwell, super crazy moment. I can't. What is happening? Jamie talks getting to know you, who you truly are, and wanting to show people that on the podcast. Okay, I cannot tell if this is just a mutually advantageous moment between two bizarre ladies. More eyeballs for Jamie, and perhaps Meghan casting her net over Jamie's followers to try to get a few suckers. I don't know. Or if it is that Jamie is that naive. I cannot tell which is true. The Meg is showing her only what she wants her to see. Meghan is very manipulative, and as we went over yesterday, the Meg has been through like a dozen different personalities or characters that feel like poorly acted, made for daytime TV, half-baked characters. So none of what Jamie has seen is truly authentic. It's a serious stretch to use that word in reference to the Meg. So there's a massive disconnect between the Meg sitting here in front of Jamie and the Meg that we see pushing Harry around, or the Meg that we saw on the Harry and Meghan Netflix farce, or the Meg from the Cut interview, or the one that we saw on Oprah or in Variety, or the Meg that we saw in the engagement interview. These are all different Megans, very different Megans with very clear, different, approach to things. So I'm really curious, is Jamie that naive that she thinks she has the true, authentic Meghan, or is this just kind of, mutually advantageous to them both? Because sometimes Jamie does have a look on her face that's like, I don't really fully believe you, but who knows? I've never watched Jamie's podcast before. I don't have a good, consistent impression of her being genuine versus not. I can't really fully tell. But Jamie says that she's never seen anything like what Meghan goes through. Meghan says, I know. Once again, who talks like that, first off? And also, has it not dawned on anyone that Meghan is literally bringing a lot of this on herself? Does Jamie miss this concept? Because Meghan lies and then cries that people don't like her. Meghan never accepts responsibility for her actions and acts like she's getting unfair treatment when people scrutinize her. You really can't help people like this. Meghan claims to see only 1% of what's written about her, and we know this isn't true. And don't worry, she contradicts it in the very next question. But she also pretends, bizarrely, to have not known that Harry said he supports her and all of her projects, which was super strange. It was a very bad attempt at acting here. And also, why? Why act like you don't know what Harry said? Do you not talk? Did he not tell you? Did you not see it? Was that not a positive piece of news that your team would be like, hey, look at what Harry did, something nice for you. He told the press that he really supports you. It doesn't make sense, so therefore it can't possibly be true. But why would somebody act like they don't know what he said? Maybe because she wrote the email and sent it to people herself and she wanted to distance herself from it, or maybe because she just said that she only sees 1% of what's written about her. Either way, it wasn't believable in the slightest, so it was a bad lie. Meghan tries to clap back at the criticism that she doesn't work and doesn't work hard with a hammy over the top, she works so hard, I work so hard. She puts her hand on her forehead. Listen. This is that line that we talked about that divides those who are likable from those who are not. When you have a lot of help, she admits she has a nanny, up to 80 people helping her make With Love Meghan on Netflix. Netflix has partnered with her as ever. In what capacity, we may never know. She has help in the best sense of the word. And additionally, Meghan isn't grinding to try to make a living or try to build something amazing or innovative or new or create a business to uplift her family or help out financially. This is a hobby, essentially. If she didn't want to work, she wouldn't have to. And quite frankly, if I had the money, I would never dream of working during the under age 10 years of my children's lives because they're just so precious. So it feels a little bit like weird timing for her to be doing all of this and taking on this much work and working so hard when her youngest is only 3 years old. I would still be full-time stay-at-home mom, just momming it up 100% of the time because that's the best. That's the best. So much fun, so much better than work. But anyway, because we know this, and it's impossible to ignore that this is a multimillionaire doing some hobby projects with lots and lots and lots and lots of help. It's just not the same ballgame. So the Meg working hard does not look the same as everyone else's working hard. Do you know what I mean? It's just not the same thing. Meghan thinking she's working hard is still going to be at least 5 times easier than anyone else working hard. It just is. Like, you just can't get around it. So harping on and on about how hard you work is really a bad idea when you are a wealthy millionaire just doing hobby things. Jamie then starts to share some of her experience in launching IT Cosmetics, which I'm sure is actually a really interesting story because she did create this brand, this product. She did all of that herself. She's a real entrepreneur and very successful. Meghan asks if Jamie misses having a home office, and Jamie is replying no. She's like, I didn't used to be able to afford an office. Very relatable moment, being willing to say she couldn't afford one previously, and that she had work clutter all over her living room, filling her living room. And in this moment where we're hearing something interesting, and it was the first time that I was like, relatable moment, Jamie, good job. Meghan interrupts her in this moment and hijacks this story. She interrupts Jamie to say that she too has clutter all over her house. I don't believe it, Meghan. And also, why? Why?
No, I don't miss it. I don't miss that part of it because Meghan, I had thousands of product samples all over my living room. It looked like an episode of like
I've got
Storage Wars or something.
Exactly. Like, oh my gosh, I look like a Costco or something. There's just boxes. So you need more. Yes. And then also you have to keep in mind, so that the actual brand and business is happening with all of these products that we've tested to scale it to what I'm making on my stove.
This was the first time that Meghan asked a question and she immediately cut off Jamie and pulled it back into herself. Immediately. Very revealing to the type of friend Meghan is, for sure. Jamie says something very confusing next. She says, look at the data. It's impossible to have a friendship if you're not showing up authentically. Excuse me? What data do you speak of, Jamie? Because showing up authentically, nay, authenticity in general, is not a measurable metric. It's impossible to get such data. So what fresh nonsense is this? Next comes the reveal of the Her Royal Highness card in the gift basket. Meghan Markle sent over a small gift basket with some jam and some ice cream and a card that says, compliments of the Duchess of Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Sussex. Now, so many problems with this. In the podcast, the context of this gift being dropped off at Jamie's house is that Jamie had a hugely full house. She had so many people over at her house, like so many people. And Meghan sent something with 2 little pints of ice cream and a jar of raspberry sauce, which she acknowledged didn't have time to set, so it was liquid, like dribbly sauce. So why would Meghan send just 2 little pints of ice cream? If the house is super full, send enough for everybody at least. First off, that was a little weird. But more importantly, and more sensationally, this is supposedly her friend. And the gift basket says compliments of Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex. How pretentious and bizarre. It only reflect poorly on Meghan that she's that sort of a friend, just really haughty and full of herself, but also that she and Jamie are not that close. Because if they were, she would just put like a big heart with "from Meg" or something like that, or just text her and be like, I sent you something. Next, Meghan raves for over 10 minutes that she has a great attention to detail, which we all know is not true. Evidence to the contrary: crooked labels, bad execution, bad branding, contradicting yourself all the time. You know, so many things, so much proof that Meghan has a poor attention to detail. For those of us, especially Virgos, who are very detail-oriented, it's annoying to hear someone like Meghan say that she has a great attention to detail, because she clearly does not. She also overly hypes up her influence and uses the phrase "a sprinkle of fairy dust" when she wears something from a small brand and then it sells. Again, over the top, not really based in reality. But also, is she listening? Because we talk about royal fairy dust and how the Meghan Herald have none of it, which is exactly why she is on this C-Team podcast pretending to be Jamie's friend for exposure. That was a little harsh, but it's difficult to see this experience any other way. Then, she assures us that Harry loves her super much. He's a fox, don't you know? Super handsome. I'm not exactly seeing it. And then she has the audacity to refer to him as Super Mario saving Princess Peach. And I brought in help for this, you guys. We workshopped this. We can't really find any similarities to make this analogy work. Who is Bowser in this scenario? Peach was loved by the Toad Kingdom. Harry's the one who's the royal here. This just doesn't match at all. Speaking from Mario fans, I can tell you this analogy maketh no sense. None whatsoever. She says right after the wedding, Harry and Meghan, that they went straight into the trenches. I think we have very different definitions of trenches. Mansions, staff, millions of dollars, a job in your lap with the option to not work if you don't want to, isn't exactly trenches by most people's standards. She reads a note from her family that Jamie gave her, and she reads it and says they're the best, and sets it aside and just moves on, whoosh, moving right along. Now, I was thinking of the kids' feelings, that Meghan, their mom, just kind of breezed over it. It was a great opportunity to actually be relatable, maybe talk about her kids' personalities or just hype them up a little bit, you know, dwell on the thoughtfulness just a little bit longer, because as much as she dwelled on every other question about herself, where she just really marinated in her stories of self-importance and delusions of grandeur, she couldn't even dedicate 5 minutes to talking about the kids or talking about this note or telling a cute story about them or something. Nothing. Jamie asked, what do you hope Lily will say about you when she grows up? And Archie is included as sort of an afterthought to this question. And she says that basically they'll know that she loved them more than anyone, in part because she sends them an email each night with a note. While that in and of itself isn't problematic, a lot of moms do this. They keep like a digital journal or a regular journal or things like that for their kids. That's super common. What struck me was how she discussed this segment. She really kind of spoke of it from this context of her point of view and how she'll be seen, sort of like validating her experience as a mom rather than thinking of the children's experience, which is what I think is most natural for moms. She says things like how I show up for them a lot, giving herself a lot of credit. It's said repeatedly many, many times. And it's quite difficult to separate this moment from all the other like wealth of knowledge that we have about Meghan Markle and her high narcissistic traits, her narcissistic tendencies, which leads us down this path of viewing her comments about motherhood or her kids through the lens of her narcissism. She doesn't say that the purpose of being there for them is so that they can count on her to be there or feel supported, or what sort of impact. It's said in the context of they will know that I loved them more than anyone else sort of a vibe, which can be interpreted as a look at what I've done for you. Look at all this that I've done for you, rather than selflessness, which is what being a mom is all about, is being super selfless. It came across more like a means to validate herself. And knowing that they have nannies, that she chooses to work and she chooses to leave and go on pointless publicized vacations or unnecessary trips without the children many times every year, it does change the way people view these comments. That Meghan is one of those moms who prioritizes her own needs and desires and validation over the children's well-being to maintain a sense of self-importance, perhaps to make herself feel like she's the most important person in their lives, which moms are. But coming from it in a like, I want to make sure they know this, and I'm going to do this so they know it, rather than meeting them where they are and dedicating your time to their experience and validating their experience and seeing how they're viewing you from their eyes, if that makes sense. Like, being there is what they see most strongly when they're very little. Your presence is what matters when they're really little. You being gone and you know, the sort of whiplash of that lack of consistency can be really hard on little kids. And there's a lot more complexity to it. And of course, you know, nobody's in the house. Nobody sees this dynamic firsthand. But just the way she spoke about it definitely exposed her to viewing it from this angle. I do think that this podcast will suck in a few of Jamie's fans. I really do. But at the same time, if they are religious like Jamie is, then they may well find themselves grossly disappointed in Meghan's past behaviors that were really morally bad, unethical, and caused harm to others. Those are actions that violate the values that religious folks tend to hold dear. In the greater scheme of things, this and Meghan's podcast's Confessions of a Sucky Business Lady are hardly being covered in the news, in the mainstream news especially, but really hardly even by royal watchers at this point. It's like most people just don't care enough about it to listen or to review it. So I don't think that it'll have any sort of immediate impact, this particular podcast, because it is pretty obscure. Like, I have never heard of this Jamie Kern-Lima podcast, though I did know who she was, but I didn't know she had this podcast. So I just feel like it's a little bit too low on the radar for most people. And so therefore, I don't think it's going to have any sort of immediate effect on anything. But I do think in the long run, as per usual, some of the exaggerations, the fantastical statements that she made will come back to haunt her and prove to be contradictions, because that's the pattern every single time with Meghan. But I look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for joining me for today's video. I hope you have a happy day ahead, and I will see you next time. Bye!